back to the third time we're trying this tonight. We're going to get this lesson in because this seems to be what spiritual warfare is. It tries to stop you from doing what you need to do for the kingdom. So we're going to continue tonight with our topic of life and war, spiritual warfare in marriage. Life is war, spiritual warfare in your marriage. Just so we have this on our videos, we just want to thank our bishop and our first lady for allowing us to do it every Monday night. Finest Bush Jr. and Lady Denise Bush for allowing us to be on here on Monday nights, and we just want to thank them for that.
Yeah. And we, of course, represent Crown Kingdom Cultural Center. And our purpose is to give you encouragement to strengthen your marriage relationship, to help those who are even thinking about marriage or moving towards that stage of life, considering marriage, just hoping to empower you and to strengthen you, give you knowledge and give you wisdom from a biblical perspective so that you can make your marriage a success. Successful marriages don't happen by chance. Successful marriages have a track record to show what has been done to make those marriages strong. And so we are just hope to be a part of your journey to make your marriage successful. That's our goal. So we're trying to give a few minutes for some folks to join in. We've had the internet kind of cutting up on us tonight, so we recognize that that's a form of warfare in and of itself, and that's kind of what warfare looks like. It's these day-to-day challenges that get in the way of you accomplishing what aligns with your purpose or with your the goals that you set. And sometimes it's not always something big and major. It can be the little things and how you respond to them that make a difference in you accomplishing your goals. So we see people are joining and catching up to us, so we're going to go ahead. And what I want to do is just give you just a quick overview, very general overview of where we're coming from in this lesson that we are discussing. Of course, you can always go back, and we encourage you to look on this Facebook page, the official Crown Kingdom Cultural Center Facebook page. Look at the lessons that are most recent that Bishop Bush has posted and that the church has posted from Sunday. Minister Elgin gave us a good overview of, not really an overview, but even a more in-depth look at life is war. And so just so I can kind of make sure we're all on the same page, life is war. It's really a metaphor to help us look at how we deal with the chaos that comes in life, the challenges that come in life, and how we can go about being strategic in order to overcome those obstacles that come our way. The metaphor gives us a way to sort of look at and deal with the challenges that we're facing, and hopefully it keeps us from focusing on the people around us and keeps us mindful that positions and powers behind what's happening is the principalities and powers is what I should say, is what we're really fighting against. It's not so much the people, and that's very important in marriage, is that you recognize that the struggles you're going through, your spouse is not your enemy. You're on the same team. You're trying to accomplish the same goals and get to the same place. And it's very easy to see your spouse as the enemy, or for you to assume that your spouse sees you as the enemy. And what we want to do tonight is give you some tools in order for you to think a little differently when you run into challenges within your marriage or struggles within your marriage.
All right. You done with your... Okay. Now, when we're talking about life and war, the spiritual warfare in your marriage, life is war, and spiritual warfare in your marriage. One thing we're going to talk about is how to establish boundaries to safeguard your marriage. You need to establish these boundaries to safeguard your marriage. What do we mean by establish boundaries? Boundaries with people of the opposite sex that you call a friend. You need to understand that that relationship may be a hindrance or may cause issues in your marriage if it's not well-defined boundaries in your marriage, in that relationship with the other person. So that could cause some issues in your marriage. Also, family, and we've talked about these things before. Family can cause issues in your marriage, so you need to have that conversation with family members to establish how they're going to treat you and your significant other, your wife or your husband. And one more thing I'm going to talk about is well-defined communication between you and your spouse. We talked before about the 5 levels of communication and how we advise you to get into that 4th and 5th level of communication, which causes trust and being more in depth with the person that you're married to. Anything to say about that first one?
Are you reviewing them all, or you
No, we're just doing established boundaries to safeguard your marriage on number 1.
Yeah, that's really a big topic or a big concept to make sure that's something ongoing. Those boundaries that you establish need to be agreed upon. It can't be one person saying to the other person, well, you can't do this, or she can't do this, or that's not the way you go about establishing boundaries. You go about establishing boundaries by the two of you being in agreement about what those boundaries are and where those boundaries need to be. And so that comes through having a conversation when there's not a problem. But during those times when you are looking ahead and planning, even after, a show like this, you sitting down with your spouse and thinking about it. Well, what boundaries do we need in place to safeguard our peace with one another? Do we see potential for our parents to be a negative influence within our marriage? If we can foresee that, then that doesn't mean the parents become the enemy. That means you need some safeguards in place. And it may be, well, we won't discuss, XYZ with parents. We keep that between ourselves. Or it could be even limiting the amount of visits, or deciding as a team what family functions you will participate in together. Those are just conversations that'll be specific to every couple. For some couples, family relationships are not a problem at all. But for others, those boundaries may not be so clear, particularly between a parent and a child. Very often those, sometimes that's what the issue is. A parent may still see your spouse as their child, but your position as a spouse in some ways trumps your position as somebody's child. And so you as an adult have to be able to take a stand within your marriage for what you two will stand together and what you all will allow within your relationship. And of course you want to encourage strong relationships with your family members, but when that's not possible, you do have to find a way respectfully to impose some boundaries and to make sure that you are protecting your marriage relationship. So sometimes that's a tough conversation,
yes, but
very much necessary. And the same is true with friends. Sometimes friends can overstep boundaries or become, a problem within the relationship. If every time, you come home, there's friends in the house and that's a problem for your spouse, well, then you and your spouse need to have a conversation about when is appropriate for friends to be in the home. Are there certain parts of the home that friends are not invited to step into that area of the home? Are there days or times that you'll designate that's good for family and friends to visit, and some days and times that are not? You have to decide as a couple, with both of you thinking about what your best interest is. And so that has to be a priority over what the family relationship is important, but it does not supersede your relationship with your spouse. And so for the two of you to be on the same page is critical. And that's how you go about establishing those boundaries is, sometimes you have to be apart and come together, think about it apart, pray about it apart, come together at an agreed upon time. And sometimes it takes writing it down to have an agreement between the two of you that you both can stick to. But you always want to If you know it's a sore spot or a difficult discussion to have, you want to pray about it first and come together and make a decision about what boundaries you will establish and how you will go about setting those boundaries to protect your marriage and to protect the peace within your relationship.
Okay. Life is war. Now, how do we combat, number 2 for us, how do you combat these spiritual attacks? What should you do? The first thing that should be done is you should establish a good foundation. Establish a foundation that you and your spouse can agree on. And the one firm foundation I say stand on is God's word. So that's the first thing you should do, is establish a firm foundation of God's word. Another thing you can do is stay in prayer, because God's words can answer all things. Some things that y'all might be going through that you can't figure out, that quiet time with the Lord can help you figure those things out. Number 3, learn how to fellowship with each other than just being in the bed at night, but learn how to fellowship in a way that you fellowship also with God, so you can continue to combat those things that may come against your marriage. Something else you need to do, we talked about this, the communication aspect. Continue to learn how to develop the communication process between you and your wife. 5, have some shared interests about what you're going to do. And all these things I'm naming are under how to combat spiritual warfare in your marriage. And the 6th thing that I got, learn how to enjoy having sex with each other. And that's one thing that in the research I was doing, they call it the super glue of your marriage, and how to combat those spiritual attacks on your marriage. Anything?
You left me. Can we go back to number 2?
Well, yeah, you can talk about these things. These are just some things that I'm giving to the people, so we don't have to have an hour-long session here. But these are just some things that I want to talk about. It's on the broadcast. But if you want to talk about prayer, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. What did you say for number 2?
Stay in prayer.
Okay, so is that stemming from this number 2?
Yeah, that number 2.
Okay, so my thoughts on that is that it's important for each person to maintain your spiritual health. The spiritual health of individually, making sure that you stay on top of your relationship with God, that you stay connected, and that you're able to hear from God for yourself, having your own prayer time, your own study time, just making sure that your relationship with God is fueling you, so that you are not so easily distracted or dissuaded by the things that happen in your environment that can so easily get you off track. And so that's an easy combat or easy attack that Satan uses, is these very common things that are common to us that get us off track, such as being too busy, or being frustrated or overloaded, or working a lot, or your kids, your schedule. There's those things that are just kind of on the surface that can really get under your skin emotionally, just feeling emotionally bogged down. Those things, if you don't stay connected to God and you don't take care of your own spiritual health and your emotional health, that's an easy way for you to be vulnerable to attacks, and you become really a tool for Satan to use within your marriage. And that can be when you're irritable with yourself, irritable with others. It makes it hard for you to be agreeable, which is necessary to have peace in marriage. You can't be agreeable with somebody when when you've got turmoil going on internally. And so you have to be able to stay on top of your spiritual health and your emotional health in order for you to be able to be fit to connect with your spouse, to deal with the problems, or to come up with solutions. When your head is not clear, you're not going to be good at coming up with solutions for the problems, even when the two of you sit down together. That can blow up into an argument, or just a disagreement, or just a lack of a solution. when you aren't in the right frame of mind. So it's very important for you to be able to calm your soul, and so that your soul can listen to your spirit and to God's spirit in order to hear what is the right thing for you to do or how to move forward. Bring your best self to the relationship when you keep your spiritual relationship intact. And that includes, like you were saying, prayer, individually, but also together and as a family. You know, when you take that time to have some quietness within yourself and within your family, and to pray and put God first, and constantly inviting God into your relationship, inviting God into your situation, that is one of the strongest weapons that you have to combat the warfare that comes against you in that area of your relationship. So I agree that fellowship with one another and taking care of your spiritual health is critical.
Mm-hmm. And actually, she just did the third part of the session, maintaining your spiritual health individually and as a family. The fourth topic that we're going to discuss under Life is War is service your marriage regularly. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? What does that mean to service your marriage? Is there such thing as servicing your marriage? Well, based on a lot of the conversations that we've had with our bishop and our first lady, it's just like your car. Your car needs maintenance. And if you don't give that car the right maintenance, things start to break down. Mm-hmm. And when things start to break down, other stuff start to break down. So you must service your marriage regularly. So what can we do to service our marriage?
Well, counsel, seeking godly counsel, not just when something's wrong, but even when things are right. At least once or twice a year, every 6 months to a year, making sure that you're spending some time with counsel with someone who can help to lead and guide you, your pastor or some other professional counselor who you trust to guide you within your marriage relationship. It's a lot easier for you to service your marriage when you're doing well, rather than to wait until things are flared up and not going well. Of course, you do want to seek counsel during those times as well, but it goes a whole lot farther when your mind is clear and you're in the mindset of, well, let's just go fill the tank with some gas, or let's just go get a tune-up. Not a tune-up, what's the one you get more regularly, where you change the oil? Whatever that's called. Yeah. So just getting your oil changed, when that light comes on, you go ahead and get your oil changed because it's time. That don't mean that you're out of oil. That doesn't mean your oil is no good. It means that based upon time and mileage, you need to go ahead and get it taken care of. If you continue to put it off, that problem can get to be worse and worse and worse. I remember I had a car years ago, and this particular car, it would let you know when it's time to be serviced. And if you didn't get that car serviced right away within the first, if you wait a week or two, it'll go from a Part A service to a Part B service. Now, Part A service was already going to be expensive, and I knew that. It was, probably around $300
$400
for a Part A service. And sometimes I'd be like, look, I'm not trying to spend no $300-400 on this car this month. It can wait. It can wait. I'll get it next month. And what I found out is, if you keep waiting, that Part A light turns to a Part B. And some of y'all probably know exactly what I'm talking about and what kind of car it is. Well, when you go get a Part B service, that's going to run at least, what are you saying?
$800.
Yeah, $800, and it could be more. So the longer you wait to deal, if I had dealt with that issue when it was $300 or $400, that was a whole lot easier than to have to do that $800 service. Plus, sometimes you got to replace some of the parts or whatever from that Part A service that might not have needed the same level of care if I had gotten it when that first notification came up that it was time to attend to some basic maintenance. So I definitely learned that lesson. And the same is true within within marriage. Go ahead and service that relationship before it gets to a point that you can't even deal with the little stuff. The big things are so big that you have to attend to those bigger problems that are much more urgent and much more difficult to resolve.
But the little things still exist. So just learn to deal with those little things first. And that's the trick of the devil. When you're dealing with, you can look at the situation as being small at the time, but when things start to compound and one thing, then it becomes another thing, then it becomes another thing, all those issues become a big thing. So that's not what you really want to contend with. So take care of the little things by maintaining your marriage. And that was basically one example of how to maintenance your marriage. Other things you can do, like have business meetings when financial issues come up. When you know there's something that has to be done in the house financially, you need to sit down and talk about it. Because, you know, when two people come together with two different ideas, a brand new idea can be created, which may be the best thing for that situation. Conflict resolution, and of course date nights. Those are all good things of how to maintenance your marriage. You got anything else you want to say? All right. Well, with that said, those are our helpful hints for tonight. Our helpful topics when you're talking about dealing with spiritual warfare. And of course, this is a huge topic. We can go on for weeks talking about spiritual warfare and get people in here to talk about it, and because there are things that you're going to encounter that we didn't get to tonight, and we just want to make sure that you get the right information that you might need for your situation. So we just want to thank y'all for tuning in tonight. From myself, the coach, and the lady, we love you. Good night.